Hello. Okay, this video probably will be a little bit contentious, but never mind. Stick with me if you want, or go away. I recently recommended a video channel on YouTube called Thulian Perspective, a guy called Varg. Now, I've got a little bit of feedback on that, I suppose, really. Just a little bit of a backstory. When I first found this video channel, I really liked the guy, no problem, I still do. So I started to watch some videos over the last couple of weeks or so, and I came across a few videos where he was very open and honest about his past. When he was 19, a series of events happened, not very nice events, and he ended up doing, I think it was 16 years in prison. That was then. Would I have liked the guy then when he was 19? Probably not. I like the guy now. He's much older. I think he's very wise. And I just enjoy the channel. That's the truth, you know. I live very much in the now anyway. So I found Varg, or Thulian Perspective. I found Varg recently, and in the place that I'm at and the place that he's at, I like the channel, I like the person. That's why I watch, that's why I recommended it. I'm fully aware of his past. So somebody put on the comments, are you aware, blah blah blah. Yes, I'm fully aware. Then I got a personal message, it was quite insulting really, but that's fine. How can you condone his behaviour, blah blah blah. I don't. I didn't know him when he was 19. I don't know the true facts. I've read a fair bit about what happened, and I've listened to Varg's side of it. And I suppose what I would take from that is it was a bit of a kangaroo court. That's how I feel about the situation. So that's that really, you know. But it asks the question, doesn't it? How far do we need to go back into somebody's past to see whether we can like them now? You know, and one person who springs to mind, and this is probably the contentious bit, but the person who springs to mind really with me is Gary Glitter. If you're from the USA, you probably won't have heard of Gary Glitter. I was born in the 60s, so my music started, my love of music started probably late 60s, early 70s, when I was 9, 10, 11. And there was a big star called Gary Glitter. Paul Gadd is his real name, but he was called Gary Glitter, and I loved the Glitter Band. I love the Glitter Band because they detuned their guitars, and you get this weird warp that goes on with their guitars. So I loved that band, the Glitter Band, and obviously the lead singer was Gary Glitter, and he sung glam rock songs, but he sung them in a rock and roll type way, classic voice. Now many years later, and I liked Gary Glitter for years. Same as I like Susie Quatro, Mark Bolan, Slade, T-Rex, etc. But many years later we find out that Gary Glitter is a paedophile, and I think quite a prolific paedophile. Now, the way I look at it, I don't like that side of him, obviously. Who would? Nobody could. The music doesn't, to me, it doesn't make anybody a paedophile listening to his music, obviously, but that's one side of Gary Glitter, the music. Now the music is good, the music was good, and I don't see the problem in playing the music. However, this is the problem. When I was living in Ishi, I've got Gary Glitter's greatest hits, and I love it, and sometimes I would want to listen to it, and I'd kind of choose either where I was, or I'd listen very quietly and stuff like that. Kind of weird, isn't it, really? You know? So we can all be judgmental and we can look at people's past and what have you, you know, and do we not like the Rolling Stones because of their drug taking, or some of them went to prison years ago, or Jim Morrison from The Doors, for instance. There's some of the rappers that have been involved in terrible lifestyles, and we don't know the truth about a lot of these things, and some of them involve drugs or even murder or awful crimes, terrible lives that they had, and we find that out sometimes many years down the track, but does it really take anything away from the music if you're a fan of that particular genre of music, or that band, or that singer, that person? It's a difficult one sometimes, isn't it? I live very much in the now, as I said, so if I find, I don't know, an author that I like, let's think, Jeffrey Archer. I don't think he's the best author in the world. I think he's a very good author. The fact that he went to prison for, was it perjury? Did he lie in court or something many years ago? And he did time inside, and that was then, really, as far as I'm concerned. If he wrote a book today and I bought it and enjoyed it, that would be today. It wouldn't involve the court case. It wouldn't involve perjury or lying, or the expense that it cost the British taxpayer, and the money to keep him inside, and the stories of what might have happened to him inside. I've no idea, because I've never read them. That's not important in my life, is it? I mean, if I like the book today, then that's that today, as far as I'm concerned. Now, what happens, human nature, we're a funny, fickle bunch. But on the back of this video, people will say something like, oh, so you like Hitler, Bri, you can forgive Hitler. It's not about forgiving. I don't think Hitler had a good bone in his body. And if he was alive today, would I like him today? No, I don't think I would. In fact, I'm quite certain that I would not. I think that people are allowed to make mistakes. I don't think Hitler would have made mistakes. I don't think we could call that a mistake. I think when you're a teenager, 19, 20, 21, if whatever you've done wrong in your life, does that need, if you've paid for it, if you're remorseful, if you've done 16 years inside, does it need to follow you around forevermore? I'm not sure that it does. Obviously, if you display those traits, whatever happened then, and you're still kind of similar now, then yeah, it's not going to work for me on my level, But if I like somebody today, then I like somebody today, and I don't think their past is too important. And again, like I say, fickle nature, people will say, well, what about Jimmy Savile? Do you like him? No, somebody with a severe mental illness, somebody that should never have been on this planet in the first place. It doesn't matter, if Jimmy died 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, the BBC were culpable in that, obviously, as they were with Jonathan King and many others, including like Rolf Harris and that guy from It's a Knockout, can't remember his name. The BBC knew all about that. They were fully aware, and they carried on just accepting it and taking your licence fee and giving that money to them, to known paedophiles. Gonna sneeze, I think. Perhaps not. Which is a good reason not to buy the TV licence, amongst many. So what am I saying in this video, really? It's not about forgiveness, really. It's looking at the person today, now, who they are, what they are, and thinking, okay, did whatever they did affect me today? And the answer is no, on certain people. Now, people elected in this country, in the UK, people elected a lunatic called David Cameron. I called him Wanky Moonface because that's exactly what he is. Now, the fact that the man fucked a pig, didn't stop people from electing him, they just let that bit of information go. The fact that David Cameron, when he was CEO for Carlton TV, he was presented with information from Roger Cook Investigates, proving and showing, documenting, written and filmed his fellow men, politicians, paedophiles, abusing and even raping young boys. And Wanky Moonface, David Cameron, lost all of that information, and yet he was still elected, and people see that that's not a great problem. Well, I think it's disgusting, you know. Theresa May is another one. We've got this old hag, this Margaret Thatcher lookalike thing now supposed to be in charge, you know, and she is exactly the same. They have presented her lots and lots of information and she hasn't acted upon it. That is current, so she is not a very good person, so I don't like her in the now. Disgusting. You know, it's always a difficult thing, isn't it? Excuse me while I have some Slurpee. But do we need to look back at a person to, if we like them now, do we need to look back into the past just to make sure that everything was okay 20, 30, 40 years ago, you know? If there was a YouTube channel, a beautiful woman who's an artist, we say, you know, and you're following her and you really like her and you like her drawings, paintings, whatever she's doing, and you like her now, and then somebody says, oh, do you know 30 years ago she walked out on her husband and 2 children, or she's been divorced twice, or she used to be a drug addict, or she spent 5 years in prison for running over a policeman in a car. I'm making all this up. Does that affect you now, in the now? I don't think it does. You know, I think if we look at everybody, probably myself included, if we look at everybody, there's sort of skeletons in the closet is the terminology. I don't have a lot really, but you know, I could tell you a few stories, I suppose, really, about my drug taking when I was much younger. Does that affect your enjoyment of my channel now? Because I don't take drugs now. I don't condone drugs either, you will notice on this channel. You know, I think we live one life and we do whatever we do, and that's that. You know, I've been arrested a few times, no big deal. When I was 9, I stole a Mother's Day card and I got caught in a shop called Woolworths. Heinous crime that was. But does that change the person that I am now? I think I've learned lots of lessons through my life, you know, and ultimately I've become a reasonably nice person, hopefully, you know. I think I am, you know. I think I'm kind and caring, you know. I think I've got a few life lessons to impart sometimes. I like to live my life. I enjoy reading, I enjoy my art, I love spending time with my dog. That is the person that I am today. So if it bothers you that I used to take a shitload of drugs way back when, then you'll have to unsubscribe and leave. But you're not watching that person, are you? That's the whole point of this video. You are not watching Bri aged 15 or 20. You're not watching that Bri. You're watching the Bri of today, and if you get something out of this channel, you enjoy it, whatever, and you want to stick around, then you will get the Bri from today. So there's no need really to go back in the past. We could look at lots of people. There was a guy, I think his name was Leslie Grantham, who played Dirty Den on EastEnders, and it turned out that he murdered a taxi driver some years before he got the role of Dirty Den. Now, I believe he did time in prison, quite a number of years, so does that mean that people should never watch Dirty Den or EastEnders? I don't know, you make up your own mind about that. if you look at the life of Nelson Mandela, oh, Bri, where are you going with this? Nelson Mandela was a terrorist, as we know. He was responsible for all sorts of horrible things. Do we need to carry that forward to his memory now? Should we look at Nelson Mandela in the last 10 or 20 years of his life rather than when he was a teenager or early 20s? Again, you make up your own mind, don't you, really? You know, it's as simple as that. So, yes, I'm fully aware of Varg, thank you. I recommended the channel because the channel is now. Varg now. So, Thulian Perspective, you know, there you go, I've recommended it again now. And as for saying I'm no better than him or whatever in that personal message, just proves, you know, human nature is a funny, fickle thing. I'm not saying that I agree with everything. I'm saying that I agree with what I agree with. Somebody else asked me, thank you for the recommendation of the channel. Are these actually your thoughts that Varg is saying? And my response, and you can have a look under the video, Thulian Perspective recommended by Just Being Bri, and I said no. I have my own thoughts, however, I love channels of people that are awake, deep thinkers. That's my answer to that. So no, I don't agree with every last thing that Varg will ever say. You won't agree with everything that I will ever say. But you know, should we watch things in the now? I think we should. That's what I think we should. If it turns out that you're really, really offended by something that happened 20, 30 years ago, or if you just can't get over that, if you're incapable of looking past that, or if you think perhaps that the person hasn't paid their dues and therefore you're doing some disservice in watching a video or buying some music by the Rolling Stones or watching EastEnders or voting or whatever it may be, you know, that's up to you. You've got to think it through yourself, haven't you, really? Much the same as I have, and I do. But I live in the now, so it's a different thing. Okay, so that's that, really. Take care and be well.